Someone told you their name. You heard it. And 6 seconds later, it was gone. Not because you weren't paying attention. Not because you don't care. Not because your memory is bad. You remember song lyrics from 2009. You remember the price of something you bought 6 years ago. You remember the face of every person who ever made you feel small. Your memory is fine. So what is actually happening in the 6 seconds between someone saying their name and you not having it anymore? Maybe it's names. Maybe it's something else. Maybe someone tells you something that clearly mattered to them. A detail, something personal. And later, hours later, you realize. You remember how the conversation felt. You remember how you came across. But you can't actually recall what they said. Maybe you've sat across from someone for an entire dinner and you walked out knowing their mood, their energy, whether they liked you, but almost nothing about their actual life. Maybe you're the person who reads every room, tracks every shift, knows who's uncomfortable before anyone has said a word, and still somehow leaves people feeling like you weren't quite fully there, because you weren't, not in the way that lets you catch a name. Here is what was happening instead. You're standing in front of someone. Hand comes out. They say their name. And even as you're hearing it, you're calculating whether you seem confident, whether your handshake felt normal, whether you've said something interesting yet, whether they like you, whether you're doing this right. Their name passed through an ear that had no one home. You were managing the room, not being in it. Here is what this actually is. Most people, when they meet someone, are briefly open. They just receive. The name, the face, the small detail. They're there. You can't do that. Not in a room where you might be evaluated. The moment a social situation starts, something in you goes on watch. It scans. Is this safe? How am I coming across? What do they think of me? What does the room want? And that part, the part that's watching, takes up the space where being present would have been. The name lands in an ear with no one home. The part of you that watches never passed on what the part of you that listens was supposed to receive. And here is the thing that matters. You developed this for a reason. Somewhere, before you had any language for it, you learned that rooms with people in them required surveillance, that you needed to read what the room thought of you before you could be safe in it. And the trade-off was attention, outward, to the room, to the signals, to the temperature, not to the person standing right in front of you, saying their name. The people who find it easiest to remember names are the people who forgot to worry about being liked. They just arrived. You never got to arrive. You had to check first. There's a reason this started. And it usually doesn't begin with a name. It begins with a room, where someone first taught you that people needed to be read before they could be trusted. It probably wasn't one moment. It was more likely a pattern, small, repeated, consistent. A classroom where saying the wrong thing had consequences. Relatives you were supposed to impress. A parent who cared about how you came across in front of others. Not to be unkind, just because the room mattered to them, and so it started to matter to you. Or a home where the temperature shifted and you learned to feel it coming before anyone said a word. You got very good at reading it. The small signs. The change in someone's voice. The way the room tilted before anything happened. It wasn't something you decided to do. It was something you noticed worked. If you tracked the room, if you knew what it wanted, you were less likely to be caught wrong. And at some point, without knowing it, that tracking became the default. Not something you turn on, just the way you arrive everywhere. You still do it. Walk into a party and know within 30 seconds who's comfortable, who's performing, who wants to leave. You read it all. You just can't tell anyone's name. You still hold your breath slightly when someone introduces themselves. You don't know that you do it. It starts with names. Then you notice it's not just names. Someone tells you something that mattered to them. You were there for the whole conversation. But later, you can only account for how you were doing in it, not what they said. Then you notice it's appointments, birthdays, the thing they mentioned 3 weeks ago that they assumed you'd remember because it was important to them. And you didn't forget because you don't care. You forgot because in the moment they told you, the part of you that was supposed to receive it was doing something else. Then there's this. The one that's harder to name. You have spent years meeting people. Coffees, dinners, meetings, parties. You can describe exactly how each room felt. You can recall who had power and who didn't. Who was performing and who was genuine. But when you think about those people, really try to bring them forward, there's a strange blankness. Not because they weren't worth knowing, because you were never quite there to know them. You've been in rooms full of people and come home alone. Not because no one was there, because a part of you never arrived. Knowing this won't stop it tomorrow. You will meet someone this week. The watcher will go on watch. The name will pass through before you could catch it. Insight doesn't flip a switch. But here is what shifts. The next time you're standing in front of someone and you feel that low hum start, the checking, the calculating, the "is this going okay?" you can notice it. Just once. Just for a second, not to fight it, not to perform noticing it, just to say, quietly, to yourself, there it is, because the watcher goes quieter when it's been seen. And in that small gap, you can come back to the room. One thing, if you want something concrete. When someone tells you their name, say it back to them. Right then, out loud. Not because repetition helps memory, because saying it requires you to have been there to receive it. That 1 second of repeating it is enough to pull you back into the room. The goal is not to fix it. The goal is to catch the moment it's running you. Because the person in front of you, saying their name, they're not an audience to survive. They're just a person. And you were always allowed to just be one too. You weren't listening for their name. You were listening for danger.